And since September 11th, the negative effect on the economy and the depressing effect on retail sales has produced a recession that across our country, and in fact across the world, that has impacted in particular the garment workers of New York City dramatically.
Designers like Ellie Tahari, Nicole Miller, Lafayette 148, which is our Chinatown homegrown designer, these companies are making a commitment to New York City. At this point, we've distributed more than 1 million of the Made in New York labels. Shoppers are seeing them in the retail stores, and it's having a very positive impact.
$6, $6!
While factory workers were given assistance, small businesses were still suffering for lack of tourism.
We got moving, the holidays were here, that was a good thing. Still, the whole city had trepidation over bad things going to happen on New Year's Eve. And so that led us to Chinese New Year. Then we joined hands with NYC and Company for the first time and did a very action-packed 4 weekends of activity.
Every weekend through February, dragon and lion dancers filled the streets of Chinatown to attract tourists.
You have to pull all the stops, including having unicorn and dragon dance on weekends. Bang the drums to bring more attention. These are desperate efforts to try to bring resources, bring attention to the community.
Like any community in America, Chinatown residents felt immensely emotional after 9/11. But many also felt the government had ignored their losses. They took to the streets to protest for more aid. Meanwhile, the governor of New York established the Lower Manhattan Development Corporation, an agency to revitalize businesses and residential communities south of Houston Street. Chinatown was included in the agency's mandate, but many in Chinatown still felt ignored.
The blueprint right now that is being proposed really have not included Chinatown as part of the rebuilding effort. We have thousands of workers who are unemployed because of 9/11. We feel that Chinatown is really an integral part of the redevelopment of Lower Manhattan.
When they talk about rebuilding Lower Manhattan, Chinatown community needs to be part of it. And I think when we look at their proposal or their partial plan, really very, very little mention even Chinatown, maybe 1 or 2 places. So it's kind of like, hey, don't forget about us. We were affected by this.
But the LMDC says it can't think of everything, and that it needs ideas to come from Chinatown.
The specifics from the Chinatown community have been slow at this point. There was this perception that somehow we would develop, all these plans, but really we didn't want to be that type of organization where we just decide without consultation, this is what we're going to do.
But Chinatown is different from other neighborhoods in Lower Manhattan. It's a working class community and cultural enclave. For this reason, it's difficult for Chinatown to come up with only one agenda for revitalization.
I think within Chinatown there is not a single consensus as to what our future should be. Different competing interests within the community would like it to be this way, and others would like it to be that way.
The community really need a cultural performance center where we can really highlight our museum, our performance group.
I believe the biggest problem facing the community now is the significant level of job loss. We need to find a way to help these workers find a job.
When you look at the Chinatowns around the country, many of them have turned into exclusively tourist spots. And while tourism is very critical to Chinatown, I think that New York Chinatown has a real special dynamism because you have a residential community, you have an ethnic community here that preserves cultural institutions, schools, public schools, senior centers, and health services, as well as jobs in a garment industry that are able to really create a living ethnic community that's not just a Disneyland or a tourist spot. And I really hope that we can really diversify and make sure that everyone has a space here and that downtown belongs to all of us.
America's manufacturing sector was hardest hit since the recession began. 1 year after September 11th, a total of 65 garment factories in Chinatown have been shut down. Another group that has been virtually ignored since September 11th is yellow cab drivers in New York City, 70% of whom are South Asian. For at least 3 months following 9/11, few people sought out entertainment at theaters or bars, and even fewer needed rides to the airport. This severely hurt cab drivers' ability to make a living. Yet most were disqualified from receiving 9/11 disaster relief because they could not prove that 50% of their income derived from south of Canal Street. We followed one such driver who lives in Corona, Queens.
Where we're going, sir?
The United Nations, the Visitor Center.
All right, no problem.
My name is Tipu Ali. I'm a cab driver. I've been driving 1 year and almost 3 months. Before September 11, I used to work good. I mean, I go out and I work 5 o'clock up to 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, go home and work one shift, make good money in a one shift, and that's it. After September 11, still now, I have to break my shift in 2 parts. One in a day part, where I work 4 to 5 hours, and one in night part, where I work 6 to 7 hours. We cannot go there. They said buses only, but I can drop you off right there.
Sounds good.
No problem.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Tipu Ali is one of 20,000 cab drivers affected economically after 9/11 by the decreased ridership.
Since this morning, I just got 8 customers from 5:30 to 9:48. So you believe this one? Never, just like that. I mean, still, that's why I'm working 24 hours, working hard to make a living.
Since 9/11, the conditions in this industry have just been very difficult. We've had so many drivers come into the office with receipts in hand, or just with stories about how their bookings have actually gone down anywhere from like 50 to 75% from September until March. The first 6 months following 9/11.
Our research shows that that as much as 55% of taxi cabs, available taxi cabs for lease in New York City, were not dispatched in the days between September 11th and October 31st, which does demonstrate a significant impact on the taxi cab industry in the aftermath of September 11th. What you're seeing there is obviously the decrease in people being out and about, obviously a drop-off in airport business.
Before 9/11, I used to make $800, $900 a week, but after 9/11, we just suddenly dropped back to $250 and stuff like that. I mean, some week, at least 3 weeks after 9/11, we couldn't make anything. The government said, you're not eligible because we are not a direct victim. So I'm right now in really bad debt, about 6,000 to 7,000, which I borrowed from my friends since after 9/11 because the government is not helping us.
A memo was put out by the Department of Labor as early as October saying that taxi drivers both in Washington, D.C. as well as New York City should be excluded from the relief efforts, primarily from disaster unemployment.
Disaster unemployment was set up for independent contractors who suffered financial loss after 9/11. They include individuals such as peanut and newspaper stand owners. But cab drivers are unique since they don't have a permanent office or stand south of Canal Street. The government has excluded most of them from relief.
Taxi cabs drivers suffered tremendously